Yes, ma'am.
I just have a general question. Would you consider like Venmo and like Apple Pay just as safe as the like I guess the wiring?
So I was the compliance officer for Venmo because PayPal bought it. And we had some issues with Venmo because they were like the Wild Wild West, and they had when I visited their office the first time in New York. This is a sidebar, but I'll get to answer your question. They had a yoga pit, and they'd take off their shoes and they would sit in their yoga pit and do the coding, and I'm like, this is very weird. I'm sorry. So I'm very old-fashioned and traditional, as you probably can tell. But yeah, Venmo is safe. I think. They spent a lot of time building and developing it. What they didn't do is they didn't build the compliance piece to it. So when we bought them, they were like, and I did the due diligence before we acquired them. So I said, well, you've got to do this, this, and this. They weren't doing sanction screening. They weren't doing a lot of this traditional stuff. But they've incorporated all of that. But their system's pretty good. And their system is good because they actually were one of the formation companies that actually did start using Facebook data to verify and validate. You know, I think the way it used to be, and it may not still be this way, for the first $200 you didn't need to give certain personal information, but after that then they would collect more and more data as the transaction sizes got bigger, because they took a risk-based approach, which is allowed under the law, and they used other credentials that can verify and validate who you are. And I frankly think that's really going to be the wave of the future, because did anybody see the movie called The Net? No, it's probably way before your time. It was in 1995, Sandra Bullock. And if you haven't seen it, you should actually rent it. It's really funny, actually, if you watch it. Now, they had the old phones, like, you know, the big kind of clunky phones. And this guy they were trying to track him down, and he was using credit cards and payment, and they were able to track him down using the computer. They couldn't do that back then. We can do that today. And that's the beauty of technology, because that type of verification process is really still in its formative stage. And I think it's going to get more and more advanced and really better. But then it goes back to the privacy concerns. How much privacy are we willing to give up for convenience and security? And I think that's the question that's in front of Mark Zuckerberg right now. And I hopefully think that maybe the industry, because this is my view about how we should solve these problems, and a lot of the senators and the congressmen did ask this question, the industry, the Facebooks of the world, and the government should come together and try to solve the problem, because we don't do that, as opposed to slapping on new regulations that will just make it burdensome, cumbersome, and more expensive for the consumer, and then harder for the consumer to understand and use, and we don't want that. I think we need to make it quick, easy, efficient, but transparent. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any others? All right, well, thank you all. Oh, go ahead, sir.
So you talked about the sliding door.
Yep.
That was just a vision for the future. So I recall, I don't know where, but I'm sure I've seen a movie where they found a thumbprint and they were able to put some film over it and make it work. So
Not true.
well, where do you see in the future, how do you see
Well, it's not true today. Let me just say that, because the whole issue is the readers that do that have to be heat sensitive to 90, whatever. What's our body temperature? So it's got to be, it's the flesh, the contextual, and the heat sensitivity in order for the reader to work. That's why, you know, we do I've turned mine off on my phone because it was so frustrating. You know, sometimes you use the thumb to unlock your phone. It works sometimes and all the time, because that's still, the technology is not fully there yet. But when that is I think perfected, it will create that. Now, could criminals co-opt it? Maybe. But what I've been told by the people at the FBI is that that's probably the most reliable way to do it, provided you have the hardware that actually can read and be sensitive to it, which they do have the technology to do it today. It's just a matter of would criminals get smart enough to, because I've heard that too, where they actually would take, you know, a copy of your fingerprint or take it off a glass and be able to, it won't work, because it won't have the context of the flesh or the heat. Well, you could create a bot that's made out of a flesh-type material that could replicate it, but there's easier ways to steal money, I think. But it's true. Not to say anything is foolproof, but it's a lot more foolproof today than certainly using a credit card. Thank you.